the Workforce Connections podcast, where we discuss workforce development in Southern Nevada. Here's your host.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the WC Podcast. Very excited today about our guest, my friend, Michael Crome, Senior Vice President and Chief Financial Officer of the Las Vegas Raiders, and my fellow trustee of the Vegas Chamber. Michael, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait to talk about all the stuff that's cool and excited about Michael. So, but to get us started, those of that don't know you, tell us a little bit about where you were born, where you grew up, went to school, college. Take us all the way to your first job.
All the way to my first job. Okay. All right. Well, let's go all the way back. So I'm originally from Columbus, Ohio. Was born and raised at the Ohio State University. So I'm a Buckeye fan.
Wow.
I was kind of born and raised that way. But growing up for me is a single parent home, just my mom and I, and we lived with my grandparents for a little bit of time. But we grew up in very humble beginnings. We didn't have a whole lot. It was just myself, and I was taking public transportation, to get around town. So it was just, it was a very, very humble, bringing up. But the one thing we always had in our house was love. So, and we have a strong faith, believers in God and Christ, and that was really kind of what got our family through. But growing up, I had a strong, family around my cousins and other family members as well. So that kind of kept me going. But didn't really know what I was going to do. The neighborhood we grew up in was rough. And it wasn't until high school that I really realized, that, hey, there may be another path. There may be something else that I can do. I remember distinctly my mother just always wanted to keep me busy, to keep me from, getting into trouble. I was always, before I was even old enough to work, I was always volunteering for different things. I volunteered at the library. I volunteered at our, similar to Discovery Children's Museum here, it's called COSI in Columbus. I was volunteering there. It was just the goal, and I know now, and talking to my mom, was just to keep me busy. Yeah. But in high school, I still, by my junior year of high school, I didn't really know that I was even going to be going to college. I didn't know what I was going to do, finishing in 2 years. And I remember distinctly there was a gentleman that came to a business class that I was taking in high school. And he was a black guy, so he looked like me. And that was kind of one of the first times that I had seen someone that looked like me that was kind of in a professional role. And it just really stuck. And so I remember talking to him and saying, hey, what do you do? And he was a volunteer through Junior Achievement, which is an organization I'm really passionate about and still involved with today here in Las Vegas.
I see the storefront.
Yes,
yes, see Michelle.
Yes. We've just. I'm the chairperson of the Capital Campaign, and we've opened the facility up. We have our grand opening in a couple of weeks.
So cool.
So I'm excited about that. But this gentleman, he talked. He was an accountant, and I didn't know what that was, and he talked about how cool accounting was and how exciting he was about being an accountant. And I was like, okay. Now, most people obviously don't think accounting is a really exciting profession, but for whatever reason, this gentleman made it sound like it was amazing. I always kind of liked math, and I liked that it had kind of this, math kind of analytical approach to it. And from that moment, I was like, okay, this may be something I can do. And I remember asking him, like, okay, how do you become an accountant? He's like, well, first thing you got to do is you got to go to college. It's like, all right, let's see what that path looks like. And so that's really the first, in my memory, that's the first time of really thinking about, okay, potentially this could be a path that I go in order to, make it big, back where I'm from, it's just, we wanted to make it big. So the reason I tell that story also is because the thing that was so profound about meeting this gentleman was I don't remember his name. I don't remember, I can see his face distinctly in my head, but he really had a profound, change for me in my life in the direction that I went on. I'm forever thankful. So I just like to tell the story, one, because, I want to, honor him for what he did, but also to tell other people that, you never know, who you're having a conversation with and what impact it's going to have on someone. And you may not ever, no one might ever come back and say, thank you. But man, the impact that we can have, especially on youth coming from where I was, is just, can have a huge impact. And it did for me. So that's part of the reason. And that's why I'm so passionate about working with kids even today.
Never saw the guy again, right?
Never saw the guy again. It was one interaction. And again, I can see it distinctly, his face in my head. And never saw him again, but it changed the direction. So finished finished high school, applied for, for 2 colleges, the University of Akron, where I ended up going, in Norfolk State University. Couldn't afford to go to Norfolk State University. And the reason why I picked those 2 colleges, because 2 people that I met went to those colleges. And I said, okay, I'm going to apply to those colleges. That was my complete college search.
Wow.
Didn't visit either of them before I applied and got in.
Wow.
Just applied and got in and went. So that, and now I have a daughter, she's 17 now. And she's a senior in high school, and we're going through this entire, college search, and where are we going to go? And we've done visits to all the colleges. That was not my experience at all. It was just those 2. So anyhow, went to University of Akron, majored in accounting, and that's where when I went to Akron, I really started, it was a different group of people that I had never, type of person that I had never just kind of been around. These are people who always knew they were going to college, always kind of knew the direction they were going in. And I was just kind of feeling it out and trying to make my way through. So, kind of just watching others, okay, that looks like a good path to take. And one of the things is there's been several mentors that have come along in my life, but they've come just right at the right moment. There's so many crossroads in my life where, I could have taken, gone left or gone right, or taken the good path or the bad path. And, just at the right timing, that person, mentor, or just that voice has come along and said, yeah, let's go this way. And that really has changed the direction, because I've had so many opportunities to take a different route than the route that I've gone. And so I'm really thankful for that. So finished college up, and again, graduated with a degree in accounting, did some internships and all of that. And my first job was at Accenture. It was originally Anderson Consulting when I started, and changed the name to Accenture when I was there, but that was my first job. And it wasn't actually traditionally accounting. It was more in consulting and strategy work. It was, I'm sure we're going to talk about it. You said, take it to my first job. So that was my first job. And cool. It was an amazing journey getting there.
When you got to that first job, was it what you had expected, because you were motivated, inspired, went to college for it? When you got on the field, as they say, did it feel like you thought it would feel?
It's a good question. I guess the short answer is no, because I didn't know what it was going to feel like. This is really kind of like my first professional job. And so similar to my journey in college, this first professional job, I didn't know what I was walking into. There's so many, things that are second nature to me now, norms in a business world, in a corporate environment, that I didn't know. One of the stories I remember is, we went to our first, quote unquote, fancy dinner, right, at one of the really nice steakhouses.
All the forks and
knives and all that kind of thing. And the glasses, what is this? And, and frankly for me, looking at the prices, I was like, whoa, what are we doing here? That's where I was coming from. Yeah. In that first position. And then again, just working with different employees who had just come from, just different parts of life. I remember there was one person I worked with, a woman I worked with, and we had grown up in the Columbus metropolitan area. She grew up in a very, wealthy part of the city, and I didn't. And just comparing our experiences, growing up, I was like, wow, this is amazing that we both ended up kind of in this same place. And our paths to getting here were just her path was very marked. She knew exactly what she wanted to do. And I was just kind of, following, like I said, people who I kind of ran into along the way. So it was just, it was an amazing experience. But I definitely was it was one of those fake it until you make it kind of scenarios for me at Accenture. But very successful in the career. And again, in that role, met a mentor. His name was Andrew Jackson. He was a partner in the firm. And that was kind of the first time where I really, it was my first job as well. But that was the time where he said, hey, I got your back, just kind of follow me. I know you're kind of trying to figure this thing out. So I'll help you navigate some of these, norms, and I'll help you navigate some of the personalities and just kind of keep you going. And I'll, again, forever be grateful for that opportunity. It was the first time I really felt like, somebody was in my corner, and, I could come and ask some of the dumb questions that, and I didn't work directly for him. So I could kind of ask some of those silly questions and get some clarity on what was going on and how I should, navigate different things. So he was great.
Yeah, it's always wonderful to have a mentor like that. Let's turn the chapter now and go to the next one, because today, obviously, you are the Senior Vice President and Chief Financial Officer for the Las Vegas Raiders, but there's a lot in between. So what happened in there? How did you get to where you are today? Tell us about that journey.
Yeah, it's a blessing. So finished, worked for Accenture, my first job for about 5 years, and doing in consulting. It was probably the best thing for me because again, not knowing what different environments look like. Kind of when I was doing this consulting, it was consulting for Fortune 500 companies, so large companies, and usually working in finance offices, and just trying to help them figure out problems or questions that they had that you call a consulting firm in to answer. But I had some really cool clients and some really cool experiences. Notable ones. I was at Bell South, which is now AT&T. I consulted at Chrysler. I consulted at Hallmark Cards in Kansas City, and I was traveling a lot as well. And then my final client when I was there was actually NASA. The actual space agency, which was who ever thought that you'd be doing some consulting work for NASA. So I say that because seeing all of those different experiences, all of those different clients, all those different corporate environments, it really helped me to figure out, kind of what was, the next chapter, kind of in life. And again, another mentor came along, right at the right time. And I said, this is what I think I want to do, something more in kind of this, accounting/finance realm, but I'm not exactly sure. And then I had been thinking about going to graduate school, but, hadn't really given it a whole lot of thought. And she told me about this, this program. There was a fellowship that they had called the Consortium, and allows you to go back to business school for 2 years. And if you qualify for the fellowship, then you get to go tuition free. So I applied for this consortium. And eventually, got into the University of Virginia, the Darden School of Business at the University of Virginia. And I remember going to visit that campus, and I said, "Wow, this is different." They call it like a public Ivy, and it really does look like that. And so went to the University of Virginia, and that's why I really kind of honed it into. I really want to do kind of finance work. And I knew I enjoyed the consulting and all the work I do there and the travel, but I knew I kind of wanted to not do the travel as much anymore. And so focused in on finance. And eventually, this is what gets me to Las Vegas. I applied for a position at several of the companies, larger companies here in Las Vegas, and settled on a position with Caesars Entertainment. So at this point, that was really the first time I would say coming out of grad school where I really I knew the path that I wanted to go on, and I kind of charted the path exactly how I wanted to go. Before I was kind of just figuring it out, kind of what came my way. This was the first time I really felt like I wanted to work for that company. I went after that company, and I was, and I was successful in getting that role. So my time with Caesars here in town was great. Started off doing property, planning analysis, forecasting, budgeting, finance kind of work. Then eventually ended up in corporate, Caesars corporate, a lot of acquisitions and things going on when I was there. And eventually, was in the corporate finance office there. And that was at the time that Caesars had gone private, in private equity. And I was in, the 2007, 2008 timeframe where, the housing crisis happened. So it was a great lesson in corporate finance and working with private equity. And eventually, ended up leaving Caesars. And after 8.5 years at Caesars at different roles, and was grateful for it, and went to Pinnacle Entertainment, smaller casino company, about 15 properties in the Midwest and in the South. But corporate headquarters were here in Las Vegas. Worked for them and got to work again in kind of in finance roles. So we did some interesting transactions because I like transactional work as well. So we did a REIT. So we took all of our properties and did a sale leaseback on those, which is something, that was a great experience. And then eventually we ended up selling that company off to Penn Entertainment. And I left Pinnacle Entertainment. And worked in a private equity shop that I founded with two other partners here in Las Vegas called Sorrel Capital. And so this is a long story, but so after working at Sorrel for a couple of years, I got a call from a headhunter about a position, with it's a professional sports team in a Western state. So it was very, very vague what the role was. And they wanted to talk, and I didn't call him back the first time, and then I ended up calling him back the second time. And, he interviewed me, still wouldn't tell me what the role was. And I really wasn't looking to leave when I was working with my partners in this private equity, that was kind of my last job ever. I really enjoyed it. But, it was a compelling case. And that was at the time I got to meet Mark Davis. And this is when the team was moving. So this is 2000.
Now you knew.
This is 2021.
Which team it was.
Yeah, I knew it. Finally, I found out what team it was. And I found out it was Las Vegas Raiders. So I got to meet a series of people, but finally got to meet Mark and hear about truly his vision for bringing the team here. And it was, it's always going to be a football team, so it's about football. But there was a vision about, this becoming, Las Vegas's team, and being a part of this community. And having lived here at that point for, 14 years, I think, I was, I'm all bought in. I'm all in on Las Vegas, and I love living here. And I thought that I could help, with help with the vision that he was trying to bring the team here to Las Vegas. They were already here, and they had played the first year. It was COVID, so they played the first year with no fans in the stadium. So I started actually the week before our first home game with actual fans in the stands. But it was just compelling what the team was trying to do, and I grew up kind of a football fan. Never played, but I grew up a football fan, and kind of the rest is history from there. But I asked, part of the reason why I got the call, and he talked about the headhunter. It said they had called around and asked some people, before I got the call about me and kind of who I was and, kind of how I was built and what I was about. And he said, we kept hearing, you had high, morals, high, integrity. And he's like, it was just like resonating with the people that we talked to. And when we heard those kind of things, amongst other things and skill set and, the ability to do it, we just knew we had to talk to you. And that's why he called me back the second time, because I didn't call him back the first time. That's so cool. About it. So, here we find ourselves at the Raiders now.
In such an iconic franchise, right, that is world renowned, but also its history here in the league and all the things. I think when I came to Vegas in 1987, that wasn't even something you would imagine, that an iconic franchise like that would live here, be our own.
That's right.
And I just think now, I've the couple of times that I've talked to Mark Davis, he seems like a really fun guy to talk to. He's serious about the business. You said football, but he's also very much, as you said, into the community and the impact. I wonder if he knows that you're just as fast as some of his wide receivers, because if he has a shortage, they can suit you up. And
I don't know if I'm quite ready to suit up, but I do. I'm a very, very, very amateur athlete in my spare time as a hobby.
We're gonna talk about that.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. But you're right. I mean, it does go back to, like I said, it's all about football, but also just the impact that the team can have in the community. Yep. We obviously got a stadium that was built.
Beautiful stadium.
with public money, but with that comes responsibility to actually give back to the community and show that the community essentially made an investment in us as a team, and what can we do to pay back to the community. So there's so many different ways that we do that through our community relations department,
the foundation,
and through the Raiders Foundation, and just really just being active members in the community. Our senior kind of team, it's about half people that were local. Sandra Douglas Morgan is our president, and she's doing an amazing job. Vegas local. As well, and then some are came over from Oakland, and so we've got a really good mix of people on the senior team.
You got Piper over there now too.
Yes, and of course, and can't forget Piper, our senior vice president, community and government relations, and Piper is just she's boots on the ground in terms of all of our community involvement as well. But we just kind of want to spread ourselves and just let the community know that we're here, and we're not only here to win football games, we're also here to be a member of this community. And the community has embraced us because of that.
I love the Raiders. Before I ask the next question, I want to let you know, Sandra, 15 years ago when I first came to this organization of Workforce Connections, it's governed by 8 local elected officials, 4 county commissioners, and 4 members of the city councils of Las Vegas, Henderson, Boulder City, and North Las Vegas. And they have what's called a legal team.
Yeah.
And she was the head of that legal team when I came. So she worked with us on legal matters and whatnot. Again, if you probably would have asked her then, one day you'll be, where you
never would.
Yeah, never.
I mean, it's true. I mean, working, as a CFO, I always wanted to be a CFO of a professional sports, franchise, specifically in the NFL. Like it was never on my radar. Like, it was not something that some people just set out, that's exactly what I want to do. And, just trying to make the steps. It wasn't on my radar. but I'm so grateful, for the opportunity to be here and the things that I'm doing. And Sandra, who's my boss, our team president, has just been an amazing leader.
She's awesome.
So it's great working for her and all the things that she's doing for the team as well. But I don't know if it was on the radar. We never talked about that, but I assume maybe it wasn't. Actually, I've heard her say, kind of growing up a kid, we didn't have any professional sports teams here, so it wasn't something that you think about. But yeah, it's been an amazing journey, but again, I say it was something that was not on my radar. But I also, what I always tell people is, when they say they were calling around asking things about me, you always want to keep your nose clean. You always want to make sure that you're doing the right thing, even when you think no one's looking, because people are looking. And if someone calls for a reference, even before they're calling, you want them to be able to speak well and speak highly of you and the things that you can do. And that's, a big takeaway for me is that, there's always times where you're faced with, your moral, ethical dilemmas. What are you going to do? And for me, it's it comes second nature to always take that route. But it was great, honestly, to hear that was part of the reason why they heard of me and why I got the call to come here.
That's awesome. Michael, take us through the day. You wake up, you knowing you probably run before work, but
true.
Once you get to the office, what is that 8 to 5 or 7 to 6? Or tell us about that day with the Raiders as a CFO. What does that day look like? What do you do?
Yeah, well, the short answer is every day is not the same. Every day is a little bit different. So my role has expanded since I've joined. So I was the CFO of the team, still CFO, but under my purview now is obviously the finance group. I also have our revenue planning and analytics group. IT reports up to me, and then Raider Image, our retail store, which includes warehouse, distribution, e-commerce, as well as our store operations and, buyers and all of that also reports to me as well. So every day is a little bit different. And then in addition to CFO of the Raiders, I also CFO of Allegiant Stadium as well. So we have a stadium operator, but I overseeing that as well. So on any given day, it can be, a variety of things. One day it may be working a lot on Raider Image, our retail operations, and working with our amazing leaders that we have there. And then it may not be a day. That may be a meeting. And then 1 hour later, I'm in a meeting, talking about, our financials position. Then another day, I'm working on a forecast for the stadium and, the different events that we're going to have outside of football at the stadium. Then another time, I may be working with the football, team on the football budget and, the player budget. So every day is a little bit different for me. But I enjoy it. I enjoy the variety, because every day isn't the same. But I obviously couldn't do it without the amazing team that I have working with me, top to bottom. I'm really, really proud of the team and what we've built in the organization. The Raiders have, from a financial standpoint and just as an organization overall, have grown substantially since their time in Oakland. Yes. And so with that came, scale, and we needed to scale. We've put in lots of new systems, processes, an amazing senior management team as well, but a team across the board that we've put in place. And we finally, I feel like at least this year, we're finally at a place where we've got the bones are good now. The bones that we have in place are good. And so now we can, work on expanding and just adding on and improving our processes and, greater profitability. And more importantly than anything else, we want wins from our football team. So I think we've got the tools in place to, open up resources to allow them to do that as well.
And the family has grown from football because now Las Vegas Aces are part of the family.
That's right.
And so
They are a part of the family. Yeah. So Mark Davis, our Raiders owner, also owns the Aces. Separate entity, they kind of do their own thing, but they're obviously, they're family. Their building is next door to our building. And I'm just as big of an Aces fan as I am a Raiders fan as well. So I do enjoy the times that we do get to collaborate with the Aces on different, initiatives and programs. I do enjoy working with them. And they've got an amazing team over there as well with Nikki Fargas as their president and then Matt Delson is their chief operating officer. I think he's COO and CFO of the team and just all their employees over there as well. So it's great working with them.
And of all the things, Michael, that you get to do, because there's probably a long list of what you find rewarding, but if you can tell us the top thing that you find most rewarding of the work you get to do with the Raiders, what would that be?
Yeah, I mean, I talked about it a little bit, and it's just like I really do enjoy, a lot of the things that we're doing in the community. Excuse me, and the impact. It was we had a training camp at the stadium. was that last week. We had it yesterday as well, but we had it last week on Wednesday, and we invited several high schools to come. Some of these teams had never experienced being in Allegiant Stadium, and I take it for granted because I see it so often and I see it every day. But inviting those students, and I was down in one of our clubs, and it was a group of students coming off of a bus, and it was kind of there's a part where you walk onto the stadium, and it kind of all opens up, and you see it, and just looking, seeing a look on their faces, and it's just like, wow, like this is this is a stadium. So just being able to do that, for in high school kid that's aspiring obviously to be do football. They were youth football teams that were coming as well, those kind of things. But then just using the platform to talk to, as I talked about earlier, talk to young kids. One of the things I always say is I'm looking for more Michaels. I'm trying to find people who are like I was at that age, just kind of didn't know what direction they were going to go in, and just were thirsty to find out what was going on. So the ability to find and identify and just talk to more Michaels that may not ever remember, that may not ever come back, but just, to share my story and to share, where I've come from, that's obviously the most rewarding to me. But on the business side, I do enjoy, obviously I enjoy finance and accounting work. It's just, it's how I grew up. It's how I was raised, kind of in my professional career. So, working with that kind of thing, working, with the NFL, working again with our senior team is all just really rewarding. And seeing success as a business, we're seeing a lot of successes from a business standpoint. And this year is going to be an amazing football year as well.
Yeah, let's hope so. And I'm glad to hear you say that about, what the Raiders do so much, not just on game day and to prepare for game day, and like you said, involving the high schoolers, but also you've hosted like Mary Beth Sewell and the Chamber had an event there, on the field. And I think Allegiant Stadium has become a place that, as you said, is more than just football. It really has become a platform for chambers of commerce to gather the business community, to give forecast on economic development, all these different things, which I applaud. And so my next question is about that. Obviously, we met because we're both fellow trustees at the Vegas Chamber with Mary Beth there, who's another dear friend and member of our board. Mm-hmm. What do you enjoy about being a trustee on the Vegas Chamber?
Yeah, it's a great question. And this is I believe my second year. I think it's my second year being a part of the Vegas Chamber board. And I'd always worked with chambers, and I'd been to several chamber events before. I was a member of Leadership Las Vegas, as well. But now being, kind of a member of the board of the chamber, I think the thing I enjoy the most is getting the chance to meet, individuals like yourself, and just the interactions that we have, with the board. The Vegas Chamber's, mission is obviously, to be able to do business well here in Las Vegas. And from the board to the staff and everyone kind of top to bottom, you can see that's really the goal, and kind of all boats are kind of rowing in the same direction. So I really enjoy that. But I tell you, some of the best conversations we have are on those board meetings, and it's definitely great to hear from the staff, but hearing from other people like yourself that are, in other industries, and hearing, some of the problems that they're tackling and how they tie those back to, some of the things that, we have with the Vegas Chamber. It's just great. I'm on a subcommittee right now, working on looking for some new space for us to go into. And, we've got, some local attorneys on it. And we've got, some people in the real estate market, myself, I guess I'm kind of filling in the finance piece of it as well, and the staff as well. But it's such a collaborative effort, and just kind of hearing it from these different, points of view, and different, career paths that they're in outside of, the walls of the Raider. Obviously, we obviously have that, that skill set inside, but hearing them and just getting to meet them and hearing about things that are happening in the community are just, it's just really rewarding.
Yeah. And I'm sure, again, like we've been talking about the theme, if you would ask Mary Beth, a few years ago that the Raiders would be here and would be the Las Vegas Raiders and they'd be on your board, she'd probably say, no, that's no way.
Yeah, no, it's not going to happen.
It's fortunate for us, the community. This is the last question on your professional life, because we want to hear about your personal life as well.
Absolutely.
But again, I also spent 20 years on that strip, on the hospitality. The company, when I joined, was called Mirage Resorts. It was Steve and Elaine Wynn.
Yes.
But then in 2000, the merger with MGM Resorts, and then 2005, the acquisition with the Mandalay or Circus Properties made us
Yes.
like a huge company. But I learned a lot, just like you said, the opportunities to grow in that corporate. I started at the property level, working in facilities, and then eventually my corporate role was my last one when we were building City Center, the largest green project in the world at that time.
Yes.
So a lot of those lessons serve me today. The question for you is, and I think you started to allude to it, do you feel that those years in the hospitality forged you and prepared you for this role now at the Raiders?
Absolutely. Part of the reason why, my wife was born and raised here in Las Vegas, so it was a big draw for me to come to Las Vegas, kind of in finishing grad school, but also because, kind of one of the things that I learned in my early career was that I kind of liked working in this like kind of hospitality, entertainment space. And so Vegas just felt like a good fit. So now, some of the things that I learned at Caesars, just a general approach to hospitality. We in this town do hospitality no better than anyone else in the world, literally. And so some of those things that I've learned, now I'm able to see it, fans are, effectively guests. The same thing that we when we both worked in the casino industry, they were guests at our properties, staying in the hotel, eating in the restaurants and playing on the floor. These fans are the same thing. We're inviting them to our house, and we have to think about that. On a game day, they're coming to our house, and we need to make sure that, obviously the product on the field is great, but also that they're just having a great experience while they're there. And the experience is it's kind of, again, second nature, just because of, kind of the way I was groomed, I guess I would say, working in the hospitality industry for so long. So it comes second nature. And yeah, it's really great to see things through that lens, and I just never forget it. I'll be walking around and I'll just see something like, oh my gosh, that's just like what I would do when I was, when I was at Caesars. I'd be walking. I was in finance, but I would spend time, in the operations, spend time walking the floor. And it's natural. You walk the floor, and just to kind of see what's going on. You walk the stadium just to kind of see what's going on. You stop and talk to, fans, and just ask them, hey, how's your experience going today? What are things like? And you learn so much from talking to them about that. And they're so appreciative that you take the time to do it. And so, those lessons that I learned, kind of early in the career, even at Caesars, and then going into Pinnacle Entertainment, still resonate today when we have, whether it be a Raider game, whether it be a concert that we have in our stadium, and looking at feedback after the concerts, and just seeing things that we can do to just make it the absolute best fan experience for them when we invite them to our house. Yeah.
The guest experience, I think, is something we bring from the Strip, but also I'm sure you were involved in tons of CapEx projects where you were remodeling a whole tower and you were out there working the number of facilities. Can't have that carpet because we got to, can't have this light and this technology. And so
the trade-offs, and going through, there's always the annual capital process of trying to decide what we're going to invest in as well. Right. We've got a fairly relatively new stadium, so we haven't had to do any major renovation stadium. We've done some actually, we've added a few, we call them our club suites. We've added to the stadium. So we've added some things to the stadium and both, because we wanted them in the stadium, but also in preparation for that little event we had called the Super Bowl at the stadium as well. But going through, those processes, those are very similar, right? Yep. It's, there's only, so much to go around. So how are you going to best allocate capital? What are the returns on it? Some of the stuff is maintenance you just have to do, but for the stuff that's, truly growth capital, how are we going to allocate those resources and get the best return on our dollar for those things? So that's still there today as well.
Cool. So Michael, let's talk about now your personal life, because as we've discovered now, you are a busy guy at work and you're giving in the community back as well through the roles and the chamber or the LVGA or others. But I know you all, I'm discovering now, and during our research, we found out that you were a runner and ran a world marathon. But today, with the cameras off, I found out that it wasn't just any marathon. So I want our listeners and our viewers to really hear about this really cool event. If I'm not wrong, it's like 7 races over 7 days over so many continents. So please tell us about this. I'd never heard about it, but please share that experience.
I don't know where you guys heard about that thing. I don't know what you're talking about. This crazy race that I did in 2019. It's called the World Marathon Challenge. So it's 7 marathons on all 7 continents in 7 days. So in 1 week, you run run a full marathon, 26.2 miles every day. You jump around, no hotels. There's about 25 runners that did the year that I did it. And you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about physically, the training, everyone's asked, how did you train for it? And, I had great training. I was running, 2 a days, running in the morning, running at night. I think I peaked at around about 100 miles a week, something like that I was running, and still having a job as well. So it was, when I wasn't working, I was running. So what I always tell everybody is, when I showed up, I was physically, obviously, ready to run. I had a small injury right beforehand, but we got through that piece. I was able to run. But what I learned, I think, more than anything else on this World Marathon Challenge was the mental acuity that it takes to really do a race such as that. There were so many, it's day after day. We started in Antarctica. It was really, really cold, cold, 20 below, it was very cold. And then the next day, not even the next day, probably about 12 hours later, we're in Cape Town, South Africa, and it's 95 degrees and 100% humidity. And, it was just 25 below, and now it's like 95. And, we ran out in the middle of the day. So, it's just kind of getting your mind kind of in a good place. But the story I always like to share is, race number 6 was in Santiago, Chile. And it was my absolute favorite race, but it was one of the more difficult. I won't say it was the most difficult, but it was one of the more difficult races. And what was so difficult about it, speaking of the mental piece to it, is we arrived there at that race, and we're at the starting line, and we're ready to start, and in my mind, I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I'm done. Like, I am spent. I've done 5. I've run the good race. I think I'm done with this thing. And so, gun goes off. The other runners take off, and I'm literally just standing there. I'm like, I don't think I can go. And so, it's you've seen the cartoons, you have like the devil and the angel kind of on your shoulder. And it's like, they're both talking like, okay, you can't do this. No, you got this. We can do this. And they're going back and forth. And it felt like, probably 5 minutes. It was probably over the series like a minute or two. I'm just standing there, and they're looking like, are you going to go? Or like, what are you going to do here? And just fighting through that mental challenge of, you got to run these 26.2 right now. So get going. And you've got another one. And I knew my family was going to be in Miami, which is the last stop. But you got to get through this one first. And so I remember saying to myself, and a lot of conversations with yourself when you're doing these kind of things. I remember saying to myself, all right, one foot in front of the other, and don't stop until you cross the finish line. And I was like, just start with one foot. And, a few hours later, a few hours later, I was crossing the finish line. But I'll tell you, in that case, I didn't stop on any of them. But in that case, I think if I had stopped even for a moment, I don't know if I would have started up again. But I got through it, and then went to the last race and finished that as well.
And that one was in the middle of the night, you said, right?
Yeah, that was in the middle of the night. So we ran that one. I think we may have started as like maybe midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. The city was quiet and the city was asleep. That's why I really enjoyed that race. It was one of my favorites. And we're running through, Santiago. And like I said, most people were asleep. There were a few people out, kind of watching, but mostly it was just you in your head. And, there was, like I said, about 25 runners. We were all different paces. So you weren't really running with anyone else. So it was kind of a self-motivation thing. So like I said, a lot of conversations with myself to kind of motivate myself to finish it. And not to mention the physical part, which you're very sore and just very, your body is physically tired. But the mental state is for me, was much harder than the physical part.
And the next day you were in Miami.
And the next day we were in Miami, and I think that one was a shorter flight. The longest flight was from Madrid, which is number 5, to Santiago. But from Santiago to Miami, it was, I don't know how long that flight is. But and then as soon as we landed in Miami, it was okay. We ran on South Beach, got on the bus from the airport, went to South Beach and laced them up, and it was time to go again.
Where did you see your family after the race?
No, they were there.
Oh.
They were there when we got off the bus there at South Beach, and they, stayed and watched the entire thing. And I think that's part of the reason why the challenge was so hard, because I was so looking forward to seeing my family, on race 7. My wife actually came to Madrid for number 5 and jumping all around, but she came to number 5, and I was like, okay, I get to see them again. But I kind of was overlooking this race that I had to do number 6.
26 more.
Yeah, and so that's part of the reason. But they were there the entire time. They were cheering, and so that gives you that lift, when they're there cheering. But like I said, in Santiago, it was just quiet. It was just you and
that's cool.
You and your shoes, a little bit of music, and that was about it.
So, Michael, besides racing, is there other hobby activities that you like to do with your family? You mentioned your daughter's 17. Do you have other kids? What do you guys do together?
Yeah, so my wife and I, we have one. We have a 17-year-old daughter. It's her senior year of high school. She's Faith Lutheran, and she'll be going off to college after this. And so I really do enjoy, spending time, as a family together. And it's really cool. One, I guess I was thinking about this. One of the hobbies I have is, and I love doing, and is traveling. So I love seeing the world. So obviously, this World Marathon Challenge was part of that. But now I'll pick races, in places that I want to see and things that I want to do. And so it's kind of, selfishly two things. One, I get to travel, but also I get to do this other hobby that I enjoy doing, which is running as well. And I'd never done it before, but when I was thinking about this, I was like, how many places have I been? I've been, I think it was 29, I'm sorry, different countries, kind of growing up. And since and I didn't travel at all. The first time I was on an airplane was in my senior year of high school. So I didn't travel much. And so I've been a lot of places just kind of as an adult. And
Does the family get to come to those races?
They do. I think I do too many now, so they don't come to all of them. But yeah, they come. I'd say probably more than half. They'll come to, and
so they like to travel too.
Yeah, they like to travel. If it's a good destination, then they'll come. If it's not so much, they're like, yeah, you got that one.
Have you been to Peru yet?
I have not been to Peru yet. No,
after we go to the restaurant next week,
it's on my list. I probably love to. Not probably. I would love to run a marathon now. Yeah. So now I'm thinking I got to go look up and see when their marathon is.
Yeah, and our Olympian did pretty well in Paris. There's a Peruvian marathon runner that's
That's right.
Yeah.
I watched the marathon, the women's and the men's.
Good.
Getting in. It's got to be boring if you're not a runner, but
yeah, and you can probably relate. When I watch them, like you said, I see a mental thing going on. I know it's more than just the body. It's up here, there's a lot going on, but you probably know that. You feel that.
It's exactly. And that's why when you're watching him, you admire him so much because there's so much going on. And when you're really racing, the others, there's a strategy in your head, like when do I go? How long do I hold back? That kind of thing. And it happens for me. I'm just racing for a time now more than racing with other people around me. But, when I get this time, all right, I'm feeling a little fatigued. Do I go now? Do I hold off a little bit longer? All those.
Do you get to check the time on your watch?
Yeah, so this is my thing. So I'm always, the watch is great. It tells me, my current pace. It tells me if I'm on pace to finish, how fast I'm finishing, miles. And so I'll know if I'm going slower or faster. So yeah, the watch is definitely, definitely my thing. And every once in a while I'll do a race, I'll do a pace runner, but sometimes I'll just run. I'll use my watch kind of as my guide. And so I did one, what was that about? Probably 8 weeks ago. I did the Orange County Marathon. So I've got 2 more this year I'm going to do.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So Michael, earlier we started this conversation talking about, the young Michael, and then in the middle you said, you want to find more Michaels today. That's part of your vision of giving back and mentoring, like you were mentored and inspired. This is the time, if you were able to, because I always think about this too. I think about the 18-year-old Jaime, and like you said, if I had the wisdom I have today, then man, but it's just not the case. It takes us years to gain, this wisdom through trial and error and falling down, dusting yourself off, learning lessons.
Absolutely.
But if you could talk to that 18-year-old Michael, or really any other young boy or girl, young adult that dreams and says, wow, I come from the same similar place than Michael. I see myself in him. I would love to work for an iconic institution, organization one day, and I know it's not going to happen right away, but I can relate to his journey, and I would want to travel that journey. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, and it's a great question, and it really is some of the things I've already talked about. But I think the main thing is just, education has just been a life changer for me. Again, being in my junior year of high school and not even knowing that I was going to go to college. I don't know what I would have done after, and maybe I would have been successful, but I can tell you for me, the doors that having a high school diploma, having a college degree have opened for me have just been amazing. So if nothing else, if you don't have it, develop a thirst for learning. And whether it's formally, with degrees and all of that, or just curiosity. I consider myself a very curious person. So, you asked about hobbies. One of the things I just enjoy reading, different, periodicals, whether it's the news or whether it's the paper, just kind of hearing what's going on, around the world. as well. One of the things I didn't mention was I got a chance to study abroad when I was in graduate school in India.
Oh, wow.
And I was there for about 3 months, and I traveled a little bit, but I'd never been to somewhere like that. And I got a chance to just see how, quote unquote, the other side of the world lives. And it's just very different. And I gained such an appreciation for just, how large the world is. And just now when I'm reading the paper, appreciating, this is a really big world, and there's things happening, not just here in the US, because we can kind of get caught up in this bubble that we have here, but there's things happening on the other side of the world. There are people on the other side of the world. And there are real, success stories. There are real challenges that are happening on other sides of the world, but being able to have that experience and really being there and being a part of the culture and spending, a lot of time backpacking and just really getting to see, kind of the entire country, which is,
Oh, you did? You weren't just in one city. You moved
No,
around.
so I studied there for, the way it kind of worked is I studied on the campus for about 8 weeks, but the calendar between, my school and here in the US and their school, the calendars were off. So I had about 3.5 weeks to just travel and just kind of see this. So I went, I kind of went everywhere, and I talked about it. I like having conversations. So, having conversations with people about what it was like, to live there. And, some of the other students were, kind of showing me some of the places they had grown up. And it was just a different cultural experience that I never had, but that developed a thirst for learning about how other cultures live. It's not better. It's not worse.
Right.
It's just different. And
was it easy for you to use your hands to eat?
No, you know what? It wasn't at first, because that's not something. But yeah, and then after a while, you just kind of like, when in India, it was as they do. And so I enjoyed that, and just I think the thing that was most shocking is just the sheer number of people, the size of the population there, and you just think about. Even here in the U.S., you think about societal problems just very different. Like how do you, I think it's 1.2 billion people. Like how do you, as a government entity, as a society, take care of that many people in a place that's less than half the size of the U.S. from a land size. And that challenge is, it's still something I think about today when I'm thinking about some of the issues that, and problems that we have here, and, how are they solving it? And so I'm always looking when I encounter things like, hey, how are they solving it here? How are they solving it, in India? How are they solving it in Peru? How are they solving it in, in countries in Africa? Like what are other places doing? And so I felt like for the first time for me personally, it kind of got me out of I call my U.S. bubble of what was happening, and just challenged some of my thought. And so today I still try to, stay abreast of world news, not just, things that are going on locally or even nationally.
Yeah. Our kids, your daughter who's 17, my kids, they grow up here. And so they grow up thinking that everywhere in the world, you have to turn the spigot and clean potable drinking water.
That's not the case.
Right.
Or even the way toilets work, public restrooms,
That's right.
That kind of thing.
They push a thing and everything goes away to a...
That's right. It goes away.
Yeah.
I don't know where it goes, that kind of thing. And,
not there.
And I've seen, there's holes
Yes.
that you go in, and and there's so many beautiful places of it as well, and so many very industrialized places of it as well. But I went to some of the very country, parts for India, and and it's not, the societal norms here are very different than some of the societal norms that are there.
It's awesome that you're giving her also that perspective, because I think we need that a lot of times it's part of our necessary growth, I think, to understand that we do live now in a very integrated world, not just because of the technology, but business is done now across the world. It really be beneficial to speak more than one language. In Europe, they've been doing it for a long time, but I think our kids need more.
Not so much. I completely agree, and that's something, again, to your point. My daughter, I'm just trying to take her, and show her just different parts, different pieces and parts, just so. Again, this experience that I didn't have, so that, when she makes a decision of exactly what she wants to do, she's seen, all different options. I fell into a career that I absolutely love, but I was single track. And, this is the one thing that I knew, and I was like, all right, I'm doing this one thing. I wanted to have options, or I at least want to know what her options are. So I want to show her different careers, different parts of the world, different ways of living. And so that she's at least aware, and then she can make, a much more informed decision than I had the opportunity to do when I was younger.
Michael, I've so enjoyed our time together. As we're coming to an end, we want to give you an opportunity to, again, you not just do community work with the Raiders, There's the foundation, there's the Vegas Chamber, but is there any events coming up in your realm that you want to share with our listeners, viewers, of engagement, again, with the Raiders, the Vegas Chamber, or any other junior achievement, the grand opening, anything you want to share now? We'll put it here on the screen.
Well, yeah, I appreciate it. So yeah, one of the things we've got is obviously our football season. Is starting. So I think it's going to be a great season. Got our coach, Antonio Pierce, got the team fired up. Like I said, we had training camp.
The home games on the screen outside of the stadium.
Yes, the home games are there. And so we've got one more preseason game coming up this Friday. And then after that, it's game time. It's time to go. So definitely want to highlight, that our season is coming up. We've got some great concerts coming up in the stadium. We've got George Strait coming here at the stadium here in the fall. We actually just announced a couple months ago that WrestleMania WWE is going to be at the stadium. So that's going to be a really big event for us, in the stadium. And then just you talked about Junior Achievement. Yeah, Junior Achievement is an organization I'm very passionate about. I was the chair of the capital campaign for Junior Achievement. And so we are having a grand opening for called the Inspiration Center.
Yes.
Specifically, it's focused around teaching kids financial literacy, something obviously being a finance guy that I'm passionate about. But it's a facility dedicated to teaching kids really K through 12 and even beyond about financial literacy. It's the simple things that we all felt like we knew. My mom was she always talked about the budget and all the things that we had to do, but not everybody has that. So it's teaching you how to do basic things, whether you want to be a finance professional or not. How do you make a budget for your house? How do you, account for, needing to spend on the necessities? What are needs versus wants? You need to have shelter. You need to have, you need to have clothing. You need to have, how are you going to get around?
That's
I talked about for me, it was public transportation. But how are you going to get around? And what do all those things cost? And then it's teaching you how to make trade-offs. Okay. Well, if you'll see sometimes the kids will say, well, I want the sports car, kind of thing. It's like, you can get a sports car. And so how are you going to, feed your family?
Eat after that.
Yeah. How are you going to do that?
All your money went to the sports car.
And so, it's different things like that. And so it's really good decisions. And then there's another part of the program where that you actually are given a career that you work in, and you have to make decisions based off of, that career. So, some kids are making, $100K plus, and some kids are, making, right at the minimum wage. And so you're making decisions on what you can do with those different resources. And it's great watching the kids do it in the way their eyes are open. Okay. Yeah. I am expensive. As a kid, it's like, yeah, kids aren't free, and we know that they're not free. And just kind of opening our eyes to that. So I'm really excited about junior achievement and what we're doing out there. And Michelle Jackson's
she does a great job,
executive director out there, and she does an amazing job with that facility. So excited about that, the events that we have at the stadium. And then personally, I'm doing a couple of marathons here before the end of the year. I'm doing one in Des Moines, and then one that's on my bucket list is New York City Marathon. So I'll be doing that in November.
That's so cool.
Really excited about that as well.
Can't wait to see that.
Yeah. It'll be fun. It's just one marathon. It's not the 7.
Right. So. Do you post on social media?
I do post a little. I usually don't post a lot of my marathons, but that one I will, because it's such a big deal.
Absolutely.
I'll definitely will post in New York. And the Des Moines one I'll post as well. A friend of mine is doing a marathon in all 50 states, and this is her 50th state. So I'm going to run her 50th state with her.
That is cool.
That's why Des Moines is coming up. But I actually will post about both of those marathons as well.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to that. I look forward to our lunch coming up. We're going to have Peruvian food together.
Yes.
And Michelle Jackson, I don't think I've heard anybody explain Junior Achievement model better than Michael just did. So, the way, and you're right. Michelle always shares this too, that it's really insightful that some of the kids, after they do these exercises, they come to the conclusion, kids are really expensive.
Yeah. I mean, it's so true. You'll get a scenario and it says, hey, you're married. One kid will be married, and has, 2 kids, and they're a doctor, and they're making a good salary, and they're like, oh, I got this. I'm going to buy this. I'm going to have this. I'm then you'll have another kid that that is, like I said, maybe is making minimum wage and is a single parent and has 3 kids.
Yep.
And like, okay, now you've got to make it all work out.
Yeah.
And and I remember one of the experiences, I saw a kid there, and he's like, I'm not having any kids.
That's right.
Kids are expensive. Like I'm just
college costs this much.
Yeah. Like what is going on? And another funny story I like to tell is, like I said, they like to choose a sports car. I was like, yeah, but you're married and your spouse is going to need a car as well. Oh, she can take the bus. I'm going to get, I'm going to get the sports car, kind of thing.
Kids
So
are
it's just,
amazing.
but you see the, light bulb going off,
Yeah.
inside their head. But one of the things that they always prioritize is, their phones and, their mobile devices. And, that's the last thing they'll cut in their budget, which is, this is where we are right now.
Yeah, that generation, you and I didn't have a phone when we were running around the streets.
That's exactly right. You checked in every once in a while on the
Yes.
phone, but you can find them now. I can track my daughter, tell you where she's at right now using an app now.
That's
so things have
crazy.
changed so much.
So much. Michael, thank you for making time for us here today.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you so
me
much.
too. We're going to have you back.
I'm happy to come back anytime. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Michael.
Appreciate it.
Well, that's it for another episode of the WC Podcast. We hope to see you at a future one. Until then, stay safe. Okay, Michael, thank you for staying over to do our bonus segment called Against the Wall.
You got it. I'm ready.
Awesome.
I don't know if I'm ready. I think I'm ready.
No, you're ready. Our first segment is called Your Favorites. I'm going to give you a category. You're going to give me your favorite thing in that category. Let's start with an easy one. What's your favorite food?
Favorite food is definitely barbecue, and not grilling. I'm talking barbecue, slow cooked. A beef brisket is my thing. And I spent some time in Kansas City working for a while and fell in love with barbecue.
Yeah, what do they call it? Gates
Barbecue.
Yeah.
And there's another place called Jack Stack. I'm actually known to order it in the mail and have it shipped here to Las Vegas just because I love my barbecue so much. But that's
cool.
an easy one, barbecue.
Very cool. Favorite wine for dinner?
So I do not drink alcohol, and so I do not have a favorite wine. I can tell you I've never drank wine.
What's your favorite dinner beverage?
My favorite dinner beverage, I think because I'm always trying to stay hydrated, it's a boring answer. It's water.
Okay.
I drink a lot of water.
A runner must drink water.
Yeah, and I'll drink Gatorade every once in a while, but outside of that, like 95% of the time, I'm drinking water. Even if I'm at a nice fancy restaurant, I'm just drinking water.
Very good. Your favorite car?
Favorite car? That's a good one. I've always been fond of, kind of those Porsche 911s, turbos kind of thing.
Fast thing.
Yeah, but I don't want to be that guy that's, it's older, still trying to stay young. So I don't know if I ever get one, but I do enjoy the Porsche 911 turbos.
What about your favorite musical group or artist?
Favorite musical group or artist? Growing up, you can't beat. I was a big Michael Jackson fan, kind of growing up. Some of his stuff is just really good. Also, wife and I share an affinity. We like New Edition. Kind of growing up. I'm kind of going.
That was Bobby Brown.
With Bobby Brown. And then Johnny Gill came in as well. But going back to the New Edition days. So if I'm going back, it's definitely New Edition.
Awesome. Favorite movie?
I was thinking about that. Let's think. Well, in general, if it's an action movie where there's just a lot of shooting and all that kind of stuff, that's generally my thing. And things blowing up, that's kind of my thing. So anything in that
Die Hard, huh?
Yeah, Die Hard 3, actually, that's a good one. That's actually one I really enjoyed, the one with Samuel L. Jackson. I could watch that one. I could probably recite, most of that came to mind. That movie True Lies with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
That one, Jackie Chan and
I've always enjoyed. Rush Hour.
Yeah.
Those are good movies as well. But yeah, I think actually you caught right on to it. I think Die Hard 3 is probably one of my favorite movies. I could watch that one on repeat, over and over again.
Me too.
Yeah.
How about you're a reader? Favorite book?
My favorite book. It's funny. I'll tell kids a lot. They'll ask me that, and one of the books I read, kind of growing up, I thought that was really helpful in my career. Is this book called Never Eat Alone. I think it's by this guy Farazi is the author, and it just talks about kind of the soft skills or kind of the things that you don't learn kind of in school about navigating kind of corporate environments, and it's geared toward people that are sales. I'm obviously not in sales. But I took a lot away from that book and just learned, a lot early in my career. So it's a book I'll always, kind of go back to, especially professionally.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so you made it through the first segment. The second one is called Tough Choices. I'm going to give you two choices, and hopefully you can pick one. I think we're going to warm you up one that I believe is very easy. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Kent State Golden Flashes or Akron Zips?
Yeah, Akron zips 100%. So not only was I a student and graduate of the University of Akron, but I'm also on the University of Akron Foundation Board as well. So I'm all in on the University of
All
Akron.
right. That was an easy one.
Yeah.
Now, and you've talked about you love to travel. So when you travel, vacation or staycation?
Oh, for a vacation.
Vacation.
I love vacations. Yeah.
Love to travel.
Yes.
When you go to your vacation, would you rather drive there or fly there?
Fly. I don't drive unless it absolutely is necessary.
All right.
I got to get on a plane and go somewhere.
And once you get there, Michael, would you rather stay in a hotel or an Airbnb?
Hotel, although some friends of ours, we're actually planning a trip to Hawaii and they want to do the Airbnb thing. I'm like, I kind of just like the hotel. You just kind of get there and just forget about
That's
it.
right.
But I've done a few Airbnbs, but if I had to choose, definitely a luxurious hotel is something I really enjoy.
Me too. When you retire, Michael, will it be on a ranch or in the big city?
That's actually a really great question. The answer is both. And the reason I'll explain, I've always said that when I retire, I'm going to go live. My wife and I are going to live in a big city, pick a New York or something like that. Not for long, maybe like a year, just kind of do the city and then get out. Cause I don't want to be, stuck in the city forever. And eventually, probably here in Las Vegas or somewhere on a beach or, like a ranch kind of thing as well. But I do want to kind of go and live in a really big city and kind of do all the stuff. Both New York's one of the examples and maybe a couple of cities overseas as well, but just do them for like a year and just kind of do the full experience and then get out.
Very cool. Next one says, rather spend a day by the ocean or hiking in the mountains?
Ocean. I love, and I don't even need to get in the water. I just like to hear the waves crashing and just, be on the beach.
Michael, if you were a superhero, would you rather have the ability to fly or breathe underwater?
Flying just sounds more efficient. Then I feel like I can get anywhere. So I definitely want to fly.
How about the ability to speak with animals or the ability to speak any foreign language? Animals or humans?
It's I think I'd pick animals because that's a skill set that most people don't have. And lately there's so much technology around being able to, translate and talk different languages. I feel like that the animal thing is a little bit more challenging. So I think I'd like to talk to animals. Cool.
Here's one of the tough ones. Actions or words?
Oh, for me, it's definitely actions. I gotta see it. I gotta see it.
Yep. Last one, justice or grace?
Grace.
Yeah.
It's in COVID we had to learn a lot about grace within our household, and grace.
You made it through the second segment. The last one's called finish the sentence. So I'm going to give you 95%. You'll finish it off for me.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Okay.
If Michael could visit any place in the world, it would be?
What's on the top of my list right now? South Korea. Wanted to go and see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The best part of living in Southern Nevada is?
Best part of living in Southern, I got to finish just one thing. The best part of living in Southern Nevada is the weather, which I know sounds awful, but I like warm weather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael's favorite thing about his job with the Raiders is?
The people. I really enjoy the people that I work with.
That's good.
Yeah, I really do.
And 3 words that describe Michael are?
3 words that describe Michael are I guess I'd say giving, focused, and family and friends. That's 2 words. Family, I guess I would say.
And family. I agree. So in doing the WC podcast here with us today, Michael, was?
Amazing. I didn't know what to expect coming in, but I've had such a good time getting to meet everyone. And it's just been a rewarding experience. So Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for doing it.